What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm going to give you some surefire tips to help you have success planting up vertical planters. Let's go. So for today's episode, we're going to be planting up a GreenStalk garden planter. Now, not a sponsor, but if you do want to check out GreenStalk, go head over to MIgardener.com. Every purchase you make does help support the show, so get yourself one. But in today's episode, we're going to be talking all about these vertical planters because they can help you grow a ton of food in a small area, and I love that. I've always said that growing vertically can sometimes be better than growing horizontally, because if you have a small space, if you're in an apartment or a patio, or even if you have a garden like we do, at a certain point, going out becomes a little bit more difficult than going up. And you can grow a whole lot more food in a lot less space. So I'm gonna get these things set up, and then we're gonna go through some success tips to really getting your plants off to the races and growing well, so you can grow the most amount of food in the smallest space. So the first success tip I can give you guys when we're filling this up here is use good soil. I cannot stress this enough, that when you're going vertically, it really is gonna help you out to go with high quality soil. We're gonna be using Pro Mix, again, not a sponsor, just the soil that we really have come to know and love. It's a really great product. Has awesome moisture holding capabilities, but it's got a lot of perlite for that drainage, and it's been amended with dolomitic lime, so it's pH neutral. It's really gonna be awesome for just about anything you're growing. But one of the biggest mistakes I see gardeners making is they buy these really amazing tools to help them grow a ton of food, but then they skimp out, they cheapen out on the soil. And now normally, if it was in ground or growing in raised beds, I would typically say most garden soils are gonna be fine. However, if you go with something that's very heavy or very dense, what's gonna happen is this soil here is over time going to really compact. It's really gonna restrict that root development, and the pots themselves are gonna really hold on to too much moisture because the water doesn't have anywhere to go but the bottom little drainage holes here. And so you want the soil to drain very well. You want the roots to develop very fast and move throughout the soil very well, but you also wanna make sure that it doesn't compact, because if it does, you're gonna have real problems and the roots won't be able to breathe and your plants won't be able to grow. So we're going with Pro Mix here, and we're gonna fill it all the way up to the top. That's the second mistake I see a lot of gardeners making with these vertical planters, is they only fill them up like 25, 30, 40% of the way. You've got to make sure, and I know, right? I know what you're probably thinking. Luke, it seems like it's going to take a lot of soil. Yes, these are the 5-tiered deep GreenStalk, so they are going to take more soil, but the nice thing is the fact that it's a lot of soil for your plants to grow in. For what we're planting here, we're planting strawberries. And if you want your strawberries to survive and thrive, you want to make sure that you fill this up as high as you can, right? Because it's only going to be as tall as you have soil. The pocket could be 8 inches tall, but if you only fill it up 4 or 5 inches of soil, that's all that your roots are gonna have to grow in. It doesn't matter how deep the pocket is if you don't utilize it. So make sure you fill it all the way up, because over time the soil will settle a little bit. And also, because you're growing in a container, the roots can't leave this space. So you wanna make sure you fill it up. Please do that. It's a big mistake, because a lot of gardeners will simply say, I'm gonna save a little bit of money and only fill it up halfway. Again, it's kind of the same as cheapening out on your soil. You're just setting yourself back. Third success tip I can give you, and I've seen this a lot online, and it's people that are struggling to put them together. Now, they could not be simpler to put together if you put the soil in the containers first. And I know it seems crazy, but once you fill these up with soil, they actually click right in place. They've got little notches on the bottom, and it could not be simpler. We're talking like a few seconds, but if they're empty, it can be really challenging. Also, when it comes to planting, a lot of gardeners will plant them up when they're separate. And you can do that if you want. I prefer to plant them up all assembled. That's just my personal preference. You do you. Some people will prefer to put each layer, plant them up individually, and then stack them. I find that the risk of crushing plants is a little bit high, but again, my aversion to risk is really low. If you feel like you're gonna do it okay and not crush plants, you do you. So I prefer to assemble the whole thing and then plant the plants after that. So then once we're all filled up here, we're gonna get some plants in, but that leads me to my fourth success tip, and that's fertilizing. So when it comes to fertilizing, hands down, and I think this is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people making with all container gardens, not just vertical ones, but containers in general. And that's over fertilizing because of a fear that because they're in a container, they're gonna be lacking nutrients. Now, true, the soil we're adding is basically, it's inert. There's no nutrients in it. So everything the plants are accessing does have to be added through supplemental fertilizer, right? So there's no nutrients in the soil that we're adding, so we're adding the nutrients now. but that doesn't mean you have to add more than you would normally add. That is really a big distinction I want to make, because I see it so frequently where gardeners will double or even triple the amount of fertilizer they add. And all you're doing is you're wasting money and you're over fertilizing, where the plants are going to be growing far bigger and far healthier than they would had they had just the right amount. If you feed a tomato plant too much, what happens? It gets really green, but it doesn't produce a lot of fruit. What happens when you over fertilize a carrot? Produces a lot of tops, but no roots. As you can see, over fertilizing at its face value seem like a good thing in containers, but the same exact thing will happen in your containers as what happens in your garden. And you're gonna end up with subpar harvests and a lot of wasted time and money. So I just want you to normally fertilize. Normally fertilize, that's all you need to do. So in our case here, we're using Trifecta Plus, and for each, because we're doing strawberries, we're doing a 1/4 cup per pocket, and I'm not doing any more than that. Doesn't matter, it doesn't change just because we're doing a vertical planter, just because we're in a container. You still do the same exact amount as what is recommended. The 5th success tip for you is based on what you're planting, where it's gonna go in the planter, because this actually can make a huge difference. Now with these green stalks, they have a self-watering mechanism where if you water this top reservoir that sits on top, the water slowly will drain through all of the bottom holes, and then basically you water the top, it waters all of the layers, and that is awesome. I absolutely love that about the green stalk. However, you wanna ask yourself what you're planting, because if you plant stuff at the bottom that likes to be kept drier, it's going to run into some problems. And the reason why is because in our experience, the plants up top should be the ones that like the drier soil, because the top will dry out faster than the bottom will. And so what we're gonna do is, if we're planting out something like Mediterranean herb, like thyme or basil, we're gonna plant those up top here. Whereas if you're planting something like cilantro or green onions that like it a little more damp, they like a little more water, those are gonna go down at the bottom, because at the end of the day, they're going to prefer the slightly more damp conditions that are gonna happen down lower in the container, and it's gonna give you more success. Continuing on that tip here, I got another one for you, and that's based on the size of the plant and where it's gonna go in the container. So if we were planting something like a pepper plants do really great in these deep containers here. The green stalk 5 tier has a little bit deeper pockets, and that allows for more soil, which a pepper plant is gonna do really well in. We would not put a tall, large pepper plant up top, because what happens is as it gets bigger and as it gets larger, what's gonna happen is it's gonna shade out and create some shade for those lower pockets. So I prefer to plant out the taller plants at the bottom, and that allows for more sunlight to access more of the container, as well as not be so top heavy. As this, I've never had one fall over, but I also really wouldn't want one to fall over. And if I had a really tall, giant plant up top here and the wind was catching it, I could easily see how it could be a little bit top heavy. So again, I'd prefer to have more of the weight and the larger plants down lower. So again, smaller plants, I prefer to keep up top, bigger plants go down below. Again, just what I have found in my experience for my, my most success, and I want you guys to have success with these as well, because like I said, they are awesome. Now the final thing I was gonna mention on planting is try planting up some of these planters with single crops. So in this one example here, we had some cold weather stuff. We're gonna be planting up a few of these. One of our green stalks here that we're planting up is gonna be all leafy greens. Kale, lettuce, Swiss chard, tons of different leafy greens in that same pot, but they're all kind of different species. Whereas this pot here is gonna be all strawberries. And that's great, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna all fill out, and it's gonna look really uniform and super amazing. And what's awesome about this, as strawberries, they like to kind of drape and trail a little bit. It's gonna be great because it's gonna keep them off the ground, and it's gonna get nice and full. So it's just kind of a planting idea for you as well, because a lot of people ask me, well, what would go well in a green stalk, or what would go well in a vertical planter? And the answer is just about anything, as long as the pockets are deep enough. If you can plant out single crops, like bush beans would be so cool in here. Last year we planted up herbs. Herbs did so well. We planted up a whole planter of just a bunch of herbs. They did so well. But bush beans would do great as well. I also try to stay away from things that trail, right? I'm not gonna do pole beans in here. I'm not gonna do, like, a cucumber would be a little bit difficult in here. But most things that stay kind of compact and bushy do extremely well in these vertical planters. All right, in the 6th and final success tip I can give you, and this is, I actually stand corrected, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see gardeners making, and it's the location they put their planters in. Now, just like any other garden location, sunlight is so key. And where you put it does have to have access to nice full sun. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the front is going to be the problem. It's sometimes the back of the raised bed. So this green stock here is going to get beautiful sun when the sun rises, all the way up as the sun rises in the east. We're going to get full sun here for probably about 5 to 7 hours, which is wonderful. That's enough sunlight to grow these strawberries here and just about any crop that you want. No problem at all. 5 to 7 hours is perfect. However, the back's going to be shaded. So what do you have to do? Well, Greenstock does make basically like a turntable, like a little lazy Susan. But the nice thing is they're also not terribly heavy, even when wet, to rotate. And so what you want to do is you want to rotate them every once in a while if you have a case where the plants in the back are not going to get access to that sunlight. Now, we're obviously underneath an awning. We're at our shop here. This is our main headquarters, so we're trying to make it look pretty with some different stuff here. So obviously, if this was outside and exposed to all the sun, wouldn't be a problem. If the sun was rising in the east and setting in the west and it was getting sun on all angles, it'd be fantastic. But every once in a while, about every 2 or 3 days, we're just going to come through here and give it a little twist. And that way the plants on the back are not going to be lacking for the sunlight, and that way everything's going to grow nice and evenly. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching today's episode. I hope you all learned something new. Again, this is not a sponsored video. I don't want to feel like I'm shoving products in your face ever. I just am someone that always wants to advocate growing more food. I think anytime you can grow more food, it's going to empower you to not only take back food security, but it's going to save money over time on your grocery bill, and it's going to allow you to eat a more healthy diet. Like I said, we do carry these over at MIgardener, but gardening is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And if you're someone that grows in ground like we do, or grows in raised beds and stuff, that's fantastic. You get 2 amazing green thumbs up. But I always want to show you more than one ways to garden, so that way anyone can grow a garden anywhere. And so I hope you guys benefited from this. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you have any questions, post in the comments box down below. I do read every single comment you guys leave, and it helps me to see where you guys might be at. So please let me know if you did enjoy, if you learned something new, if you're trying these setups, or if you're not, and anything else you want to let me know in the comments box down below. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider checking this one out. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you so much for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Consider doing that. We upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, rain or shine. And if you need any garden tools, supplies, or seeds, check out MIgardener.com. We got you covered. See you guys in the garden. Bye.